Welcome to the Solemn Vanguard channel. Today we are doing a meta-analysis of the Lost meta. So, as you know, there are basically no events because of the whole, you know what's going on. And so, how do we do a meta-analysis? Well, we had a Vision Cup still going on right now. And so, 2 of the 4, I believe, qualifiers, or 3? 4. They have a final event then at the end where everyone who qualified plays against each other for prizes. If you want to sign up for that, I'll put a link somewhere in the description or in the comment section. So we've had 2 of these events so far, and they're always like 60 plus players. So I do feel, given that they're the only results we actually have access to, you know, they can be useful to check out. So sure, it'd be cool if we would have Springfest type of tournaments. They're not here right now. So let's just look at the results we do have. So first of all, the top of the first standard one, we saw 3 Vanquisher, 3 Revan, 1 Chronofang, and 1 Neo Nectar. So that was the top 8. Now this isn't too surprising. We all know that Vanquisher and Aquaforce are the strongest decks because they just got so damn buffed in the Dragon's Vanity set. But what's maybe surprising for some people is the Chronofang right there. Chronofang is actually pretty strong. At least that's what Kai from WCC tells me. Apparently it's a really solid deck. And if we're looking at the top 4, it was actually won by Aquaforce, 2nd place Aquaforce, 3rd place Vanquisher, and then the other 3rd place, because that wasn't played out or something, I don't know, was also Chronofang. So it's pretty clear that those 3 decks are the best ones. They're like the clear winners here. Obviously Vanquisher and Aquaforce more so, but maybe that's because of the lack of representation in comparison. As we can see in the clan breakdown at the bottom, Gears only had 6 players. Meanwhile, Aquaforce had 18, Narukami had 17, so obviously that's kind of an argument that maybe Chronofang is a bit better than we give it credit for, but probably still not as good as the Vanquisher and the Aquaforce. However, moving to Premium of said week, we saw some, that is some diversity right there. So essentially, we have 2 Riviere in top 8, and then everything else is another clan. So we have 2 Riviere, we have 1 Spike Brothers GB8, which ended up winning the event. We had 1 Neo Nectar, we had 1 Gridora Geese, that's a pretty odd one there. We had 1 Nubatama, 1 NLK, and 1 Great Nature. So that is quite diverse. I don't really know what to say. This is basically what an unsolved format looks like to me. The ban list took care of the big boogeyman. Many people expected Neo Nectar and NLK to then dominate, and this result so far seems to disagree. Despite Neo being the most represented clan, together with Bermuda Triangle, DI being the 2nd most represented clan, pretty close to Neo, they only each got 1 spot in that top 8. And then we see Riviere, again the most represented together with Neo, taking 2 of those spots. So again, these are not Springfest events, but they do have quite a player count. You know, if we're taking some of the bigger VGCS seriously as an event, then we should probably also just look at these, especially because we don't have larger events to look at. So this is our only way to really analyze right now. So yeah, I feel at the beginning of a format, you can usually expect the most diversity because people are just trying to figure out what's actually good and viable, and they're looking for their own ways and so forth. So while the standard event was in a totally solved meta because it's easier to solve standard, like let's be real, you open up Dragon's Vanity and you go, okay, these 2 are busted, boom, you've got your meta. For Premium, not so much. But I do think that Premium, despite it being so damn diverse in here, will start getting less diverse over time as more people start figuring out. Meanwhile, if Standard gets less diverse, that's it really can't. Unless, of course, we start getting new sets and so forth. I don't believe these events will be having next stage yet. Maybe the last ones, I don't know. That was for last week. This week, we had some more results. Once again, we see Vanquisher and Revan as the big winners. 1st place ended up being Revan, the 2nd place ended up being Vanquisher. In the top 8, we had 2 Vanquishers, 2 Revans. But then, we had a Brufas, so a DI deck, a Valkyrian deck, Genesis, a Claret Sword deck, and a Blade Master deck. Odd. That's very odd. I mean, I can see the Claret Sword kinda, I can see the Genesis, I can kinda see the DI, but the Blade Master, wow, not so much. But again, once we then get to the top 4, we notice the oddities start vanishing, and it's 2 of the Aquaforce, like 2 out of 2 Aquaforce players got into the top. The 1 Vanquisher made it into the top, and then the 1 DI, which is a bit surprising, but it's still like probably the best protect deck essentially, which doesn't necessarily say much. Then we go into the premium results. We notice something again. Here we go, unsolved format. We have 1 Tachi, 1 Nightmare Dolls, 1 Bermuda, 1 Kagero, 1 Claret Sword, 2 Grand Blue, and 1 NLK. That is phew, very, very left field. Notice how there's no Neo. Only 4 people showed up with Neo, so maybe after seeing last week, people noticed, damn, Neo was so good, but where is it? And guess it's not that great. Maybe I shouldn't be taking it. I don't know. It didn't make it. It could also be that it just got unlucky, maybe some disconnect issues, whatever. But still, it's pretty interesting. There were 7 DI players, and 1 of them made it. DI also ended up winning the event, so that's pretty cool. That is not the biggest surprise. 2 Grand Blue in top 8 though is a pretty big deal. I've always believed it's a very, very strong deck. It was a bit of a sleeper, then it got second at Worlds, it became less sleeper. It's definitely not the best deck of the format or anything like that, but it can hold its own really well. What's really surprising though is the Claret Sword and the Nightmare Doll. Like, I can see the Kagero, I can see Anger Blader Tachi doing some crazy stuff. Again, Nightmare Doll has the loopy loop with Alice and all of that stuff, but is it a top tier deck? I don't know about that. Kagero, I can kind of see. Again, you have your Legion play, you have your Ride Up and Smash, you have your Denial Griffin. Claret Sword? Claret Sword is basically a Morfessa deck with Maka, and then you run your Morion Spear and your Espada. But it's definitely not the most top tier. So that's still very, very odd to see. Now, one more piece of data that we have that makes this even more interesting, and that Bushiroad actually doesn't give us, is win rates. So if you've played Hearthstone before, you know that you can track the win rates of a deck across the entire ladder. Here, since this was all online, they also tracked all the win rates. We don't have that many games yet populating this, so it won't be the most hyper accurate thing, but it is interesting to look at, in my opinion, nonetheless. So when we go to the standard win rates right here, we notice that the highest win rate was actually Kagero. Now, one thing to keep in mind, because we don't have many games, this could be the wins of a single player, or they could have fought a very iffy player. Whereas if we go towards the Narukami line, which has a 58% win rate, there's 55 wins, 39 losses. That's probably a bit more valid, because you can at least have like both the top end of good players doing good things and bad players doing bad things, and good players against bad and bad against good, and so forth, which you can't have when you have these very low amounts of numbers. Like Kagero was 5 wins, 2 losses, okay, but that's not necessarily very useful to look at. Meanwhile, if we go towards Aqua Force, we have 45 wins, 36 losses, that's a 55% win rate. You know, we have some more data. In an ideal world, where we have something like Hearthstone, you have 10,000 games on it, and that's gonna be real cool. Ideally, Vision would actually show us the win rates of all clans in both formats after all the events are over, compiled, so that way we actually get win rates of 1,000 games or something. That could be actually really interesting. So for now, I still wanted to have a look at it so you can see them, but you have to take these results with a grain of salt. We noticed Shadow Paladin 64% win rate, so Kagero 71, Narukami 58, but so remember, because Narukami is so much more played, you will have a way bigger variety of people doing wrong things with it and good things with it. So that's kind of skewing the ratios, but it's still useful to look at. If we look at DI 6-4, that gives it a 60% win rate, but remember, one DI made it into tops, and so that DI is skewing all of the wins in here. Next up, we have the same for Premium. So in Premium, notice how Angel Feather has a poor 18% win rate. That's pretty sad. What's the highest win rate deck actually? It is Pale Moon. So again, because we had that one Nightmare Doll player doing really well, they are carrying that win rate. They brought it to 71%, which is not that realistic. Now, one thing I'm noticing, wins and losses aren't equal. So there must have been something with disconnects or DQs or whatever, because otherwise that would have to be equal. You know, Vision will probably compile it at the end. That'd be really interesting to see. For now, I just wanted to share it. Dark Irregulars, 60% win rate. Aqua Force, 60% win rate. See, and that's because they only have 3 wins and 2 losses. So that's totally changing how useful the data is. So that's why I really want to see the final, like the final standing of all the win rates, because we'll have like 1,000 games or something like that. For now though, still pretty interesting. As we can see with the results so far, it would seem Standard is just solved, as in Narukami Aqua Force best deck, and then, you know, you have a few more stuff sprinkled on top. I do think Chrono Fang is actually pretty good, if I can believe Kai, and I do believe Kai's opinion. He's a very good, smart player. Whereas for Premium, it's very unsolved. We've had wildly different results across the 2 weeks. One thing we did see popping up both times is Riviere doing well and DI doing well. So that is the one thing that we saw both times, but beyond that is just the wild west of trying to figure stuff out, which is always interesting. So that is all for today. Hope you found this interesting. If you did, please subscribe to the Solemn Vanguard channel, click the button to stay up to date, like the video. If you like the video, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. I will see you soon. Ciao.